Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview Sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com. Welcome to the podcast. This is your co-host, Seth Greene. Today, I've got the good fortune to be joined by Josh Schuster from Solarback USA. Solarback is empowering profitability through sustainable solutions. They are spearheading a paradigm shift in the energy industry and are dedicated to providing profitable, clean energy business models. Josh, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Let's go back in time a little bit. How did you and Solarback get started?
Well, I've had a background in real estate, been a developer in New York City for 20 years, and have recently made a move to South Florida with my family, looking for opportunities down here. There seemed to be a massive exodus out of New York, and we follow that Oregon Trail, if you will. And while down here, I was on my way to a local shopping center anchored by a grocery store called Publix, and I couldn't find parking, sort of was parked, pretty far away from the entrance. And as I'm walking into the store and getting berated by the sun, and sweating through my shirt, and cursing at the world, I started looking around and saying, wow, there's a lot of horizontal real estate that I see. There's a large flat shopping center. I look around me, across the street, there's another one, diagonal from me, there's another one. And I'm getting hit with the sun, and like the light bulb went off and said, hey, why don't I cover and blanket a lot of this commercial real estate, right? As I see the roof as a vacant floor, and let the sun be the tenant. And I'll install solar and provide clean energy to the tenants downstairs. So immediately inside the building, sort of like a microgrid.
Awesome. And then talk a little bit about kind of the evolution of Solarback, because obviously you went from idea to a real viable business. So there was probably some in between there.
Yeah. I mean, once you learn a type of business like I did, real estate development in particular, it's kind of a niche, although there's a lot of different skill sets, many of which are transferable to what I'm doing now, right? We're essentially a real estate company looking for large roof areas, cutting long-term leases with landlords, 25 to 50 years. And, there's a lot to relearn and understand in the renewable energy space. You sort of have to pretend you're an engineer to some degree and learn new calculations, new formulas, understand, everything from azimuth to, how a kilowatt hour is calculated, and et cetera. And so that's part of the fun. I mean, just sort of that transition into a new industry altogether was exciting. And, part of the things we learned along the way are sort of what's happening in the world with regards to climate change and like how wasteful we are. Just to give you, some numbers, we dump so much plastic, right? Plastic has a very short one life cycle for the most part. And we dump so much plastic into the ocean, something to the tune of 30 million metric tons will be dumped by 2040. And to put that into context, like that's the equivalent of taking a long line of Ford F-150 trucks, having 3 million of them single file driving into the ocean, which is a massive amount of plastic that we're literally just dumping away. So these things, they sort of add up. I mean, if you think about what we do with aluminum, in this country, aluminum foil. We throw away enough foil in 3 months to build out our commercial airline fleet in the United States. So just so much waste, and that's just the United States. Now you add on the rest of the world, right? 4 billion of which does not have access to organized waste removal. Where does it all go? It goes, basically everywhere but a garbage dump. So, that coupled with carbon emissions from all various industries is creating this massive problem. So how do we address it? Well, in our baby step is to blanket the something like 13 billion square feet of commercial roof space in the United States. Take that area; it's just sitting vacant. It's just withering away to sun and its radiation. Let's capture that photovoltaic cells, those photons coming from the sun, convert it to clean energy, and let's allow small businesses to save money, right, with reduced utility expenses. Let's give landlords who are struggling in retail altogether, let's give them ancillary income. And then we as a company can pride ourselves with this social impact of providing clean energy at a massive scale.
That is absolutely incredible. Can you talk a little bit about the evolution of Solarback and kind of how you've grown?
Sure. So I think it started, to grow when we realized I have one partner and we just sort of scratched our head and every day we were just learning something new, just through reading, just through research. And we finally said, you know what, we should probably hire some engineers. So we found two guys that one is in the state of Florida, one is in California, super knowledgeable in this particular space that have joined our team, and they've just helped us steer the ship. And we've, through osmosis, learned as much as we could with them. We've also started to grow our board of advisors, introducing all types of professionals from, people that have run massive private equity funds to lawmakers and policymakers. One is an ex-state senator. We have, folks that have bought and sold companies, people that know how to take something grassroots and grow it large, because essentially this isn't a margin business as much as it is a volume business. So we want to expand as rapidly as possible. And, again, get to sort of this roof space coverage as quickly as possible. I mean, Chase Manhattan Bank, for example, they've announced that 400 of their branches are going to have solar roofs, right? You got Target that has 550 stores with solar. IKEA, 100% of their stores worldwide have solar. So the trend is only going to catch on. And in terms of electrification of this grid, 80% of it is expected to come from solar energy. So it's not going anywhere.
Well, you're certainly on the right side of solving the problem in a sustainable way. How do you differentiate yourself from the millions of local solar installer companies that that seem to pop up?
Yeah, and I think that's a big problem with solar, and it gave solar this strange stigma. There are a lot of fly-by-night groups. We've done a lot of due diligence on who the right installers are, who the right manufacturers and suppliers are. And we're not solar contractors, right? We're not electricians. We're not roofers, but we work with the best in those disciplines. And they're part of our team to ensure that there's a quality control rollout effort so that we're delivering best in class product. At the end of the day, we want this product to live as long as its lifespan, which is like 20, 25 years. And we want quiet enjoyment on our leases. And just to collect, a reduced fee from our clients and enjoy that fixed income.
That makes a lot of sense. So if you're not the installers, talk a little bit about how your business model works.
Sure. So we'll first locate an ideal asset greater than 20,000 feet. We look for 1 or 2 story buildings. We're geographically focused now in South Florida, although we have assets across 4 other states that we're exploring, everything from malls to deserts, 150 acres in the desert to to large scale public storage. But once we find the real estate, the roofs, we then negotiate the lease, and then we get in touch with the tenants. And in some cases, we have relationships directly with these national retailers. I mean, the SEC now is imposing fines on publicly traded companies that aren't meeting their carbon reduction benchmarks, and those fines are due to grow exponentially, because there's no way we're going to meet our net zero benchmark, as we've said to other countries that we would by 2030. There's no way we're going to do that unless we introduce these laws.
Absolutely. So, from a B2B sales perspective, how are you getting in the door, not just at, hey, there's a local car dealership which has a lot of roof space, to, I'm sure our listeners want to know, on those high ticket sales, like how does one get in the door at Target to pitch them, hey, we should have 500 of your stores with solar?
Yeah, good question. I mean, so it's funny you mentioned car dealership, because that's, we're working with several car dealerships right now. Those are fantastic roof, great observation there. So the short answer is we get in touch with the landlord first. And the conversation is very short and sweet. Mr. or Mrs. Landlord, how much money do you make on your roof? The answer is a recurring zero, right? For the most part. Some people have sell incentives, but whatever. It's zero. We say, well, how would you like us to lease it? And in some cases, we'll provide you with a brand new roof, right? Because we don't want the landlord to call us up 2 years from now and say, hey, I need you to take the panels off. We need to install a new roof, or there's a leak. No, we want quiet enjoyment. So we'll install a new roof. And 9 out of 10 phone calls, we get invited in to take the pitch to the next level, like a letter of intent or a lease. There's always that 10% individual who's sort of like skeptical, like, this sounds too good to be true. Like, what do you mean you're going to rent my roof? Or they don't believe that, there is such thing as climate change, and then you have to convince them on that, but not to get political.
That's a whole separate conversation.
Exactly. So that's the exercise, and then there's a parallel path on fostering relationships with these companies like Target. And you asked, well, how do you get in touch with them? Most publicly traded companies, Target is one of them, Walmart is another. They have on their website dedicated pages to their sustainability practices. How are they recycling? Walmart and Target are a big one here, because if you think about the United States, I'm going back to waste, we throw away like 31 million metric tons of clothing every year. What does that mean in terms of carbon? It's the same as removing all of the cars in Los Angeles from the road. Take them all off for a year. That's how much clothing we throw away. So these companies are conscious of this, and this fast fashion trend is starting to dissipate. I listened to one of your podcasts where an individual was talking about sort of, wealth transfers and providing for the next generation. Well, if you look at the wealth transfer that's taking place now, it's the largest in history. From the baby boomers to the millennials, we're talking about $40 trillion. Those are the folks that are buying consumer goods, and they want to know that they're buying from a company that's ESG conscious, that's focused on the environment or social impact, or the governance necessary to make that happen.
With all the success that you're having, what's your biggest challenge now?
Candidly, insurance. It's some of those things you don't often think about, but when you are installing solar on a roof, one's going to scratch their head and ask the question, well, what happens if the wind gusts? What happens if there's a storm? What happens in South Florida when there's a hurricane? Right. And the short answer is that you have to kind of explain the laws of physics, Bernoulli's principle, and how wind can create a vacuum and actually creates downward pressure on the solar. So they're not really going to fly off. If anything, they're going to shield the roof. It's going to act as some sort of protectant from the sun. It's going to actually elongate the lifespan of the roof. So there are all kinds of benefits, but the insurance companies are starting to gain traction in this space because more and more businesses and homes are installing solar. And it's not going anywhere. In light of the Inflation Reduction Act that exists, for the next 10 years, when it sunsets, we have 10 years to receive tax credits to subsidize these installations. So everyone really ought to be taking advantage of this.
Your passion is obvious. What do you like best about what you're doing?
Well, for me, it's a little bit daunting when you dig into the numbers. Again, the fact that we cut down 15 billion trees a year, that is concerning. I have 3 children, right? I want them to grow up and they're going to ask me, hey, Dad, what did you do to save our world? And I have an explanation, right? I didn't conduct business as usual. For my children, we have every hour we have 3 species going extinct every hour, right? And that trend's not stopping unless we do something about climate mitigation. So for me, I want to know, well, I'm passionate in this social impact because in the past, I would build homes, I build apartment buildings, and I would take pride in the fact that people are growing their families or have a roof over their head and their businesses. Now I could take pride in the fact that I'm helping small businesses save on their bottom line, right? Helping to keep retail alive and ensuring that dirty energy is a thing of the past and clean energy becomes our future.
That is awesome. Who's an ideal customer for you and where should they go to learn more?
Anybody with a large scale roof, greater than 20,000 feet, check us out on our website at solarbackusa.com. And all of our phone numbers are on there and we'd love to talk to you.
All right. Thanks so much. We know your time is incredibly valuable. We appreciate you spending some of it with us. This has been Seth Greene for Sharkpreneur with Josh Schuster from Solarback USA. Josh, thanks again.
Thanks, Seth. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening, and we'll talk to you or see you next time.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.